Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Okay guys, it is Sunday, December 1st, and I don't know how it got to be December 1st, but here it is nonetheless. So we're going to get into the news tonight. There are no Q posts, and I do have some people to thank, but I'm going to do that at the end. So I'm here with my hot tea, my fisherman's friend, which I just took, and water. So I'm hoping that with all that, I'll be able to get through this without coughing. Let's see. And I'm not going to promise 2 videos tonight because lately I've been doing well just to get through one without coughing my lungs up. It's cold here. I don't know where you are, but I'm here that a good swath of the United States is having winter weather. It's definitely cold here. In fact, last time I looked outside, the dogs were wearing caps, and people were holding up pictures of thumbs. The people that were hitchhiking, they just held up pictures of thumbs because it's too cold. Anyway, yeah. All right, let's get into this and stop being silly. Although I've been snowbound, so I'm a little silly tonight. I'm just warning you. Okay, now, you guys may have seen this already. Wouldn't surprise me if you had. But this is odd because at first when I saw this video, I didn't bring it to you guys because I thought that's not real. That's one of those bad lip reading videos or something. No, it is real, unfortunately. And this was taken from the same video where he went into his corn pop story that everybody likes to retell. And this is really bizarre. And for me, this seals the deal that he is, I mean, there was no question that he was not fit for office before this. But now, I mean, this guy does not even know how to curb his mouth, because to him, what he's saying is normal. And that is terrifying to me. Now, let's go ahead and let this play out.
I saw that made me aware when I was in law school. Proudly for Holloway. Proudly for your dad. First African-American state senator in the state of Delaware. Everything about. And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot.
So notice right away, he puts his arm around this little girl who looks at him and looks a little bit uncomfortable. And then he goes into a story about how the kids, his legs hair is hairy, and that it would turn blonde in the summer. Why this matters to anyone, I have no idea. And that kids would stick their hand in the pool and rub his legs down to watch the hair come back up. In what decade or world is that appropriate? Let's listen.
I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it.
Sure, it was just the hair, Joe? I'm just asking for a friend.
So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap, and I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap, and I love kids jumping on my lap. Said no politician ever. I don't get it. Like, is he that out of touch with reality? Yes, he is. And what's he saying? I learned about roaches. What is that? I don't think that he's talking about. What is he talking about? Yeah, yeah.
And I tell you what, the men, they're now all men, the guys I work with down here, and they're all guys at the time. They're all good men. Most of them made an awful lot of themselves. And Earl Larkin had a rough time. And some of you knew Earl. I came back as a public defender.
Yeah, that's That's a very interesting little clip there that tells a lot. No wonder it was cut out of the whole corn pop story. Yeah. Alrighty then, let's move on quickly. Now, let's look at this, which I think is a little bit odd. Okay, it's a lot odd. But you know what? We're living in bizarro world now. It's like, it doesn't matter what you pull up from the news. It's bizarre. All of it. John Kerry recruits Bill Clinton, Leonardo DiCaprio for new climate coalition. Oh, wow. Yeah, and this is the guy that made so much money. His son was the head of, was one of the companies that Burisma. He was involved in Ukraine. That's all I know. He was involved in Ukraine through energy company. But yeah, he's recruiting Bill Clinton and Leonardo DiCaprio for new climate coalition. All right. Former Secretary of State John Kerry on Saturday announced the launch World War Zero, a star-studded coalition of former heads of state and Hollywood figures dedicated to advocating for solutions to climate change. I was hesitating there because I was thinking, wasn't there a movie called World War Z? I don't know. It seems to me there was. So the forthcoming organization's website states their chief objective is to mobilize resources to tackle global warming in a way akin to the Western allies in World War II. Okay. The New York Times reports that John Kerry, who served as a senator in Massachusetts from 1985 to 2013, has recruited former presidents Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter and former Republican governors John Kasich and Arnold Schwarzenegger, A-listers such as actors Leonardo DiCaprio and Ashton Kutcher, and rocker Sting are also on board. Over 60 figures are said to have signed up for the coalition. Now, this is driving me crazy, so I have to look this up. I really do. And I think you'll want me to, or maybe not. World War Z. I'm sure that was a movie. It was. Okay, let's see what this is about. World War Z is a 2013 American apocalyptic action horror film directed by Mark Forster with a screenplay by, okay, we don't care about any of that. Does it say what it's about? No, it does not. Okay. It should. Plot. Former UN employee Jerry Lane, his wife Karen, and 2 daughters are in heavy Philadelphia traffic when the city is overrun by zombies that are attracted to sound. As chaos spreads, the Lanes escape to Newark, New Jersey, and take refuge in an apartment home to a couple with a young son, Tommy. UN Deputy Secretary General Thierry Umutoni, an old friend of Jerry, sends a helicopter that extracts the Lanes and Tommy to a U.S. Navy vessel in the Atlantic, where scientists and military personnel are analyzing the worldwide outbreaks. Andrew Fastback posits that the plague is a virus and that development of a vaccine depends on finding the origin. Jerry agrees to help Fastback find the outbreak source after it's been made clear that the Lanes will be removed from the cramped ship if he is not of use. Jerry and Fastback fly to Camp Humphreys, a military base in South Korea, where they are attacked on arrival by zombies. Turning to re-enter the aircraft, Fastback slips, falls, and accidentally shoots himself dead. I hate when that happens. After being rescued by the base surviving personnel, led by Captain Spake, Jerry learns that the infection was introduced to the base by its doctor, who was ultimately incinerated by a soldier with a lame leg whom the infected ignored. I'm sorry. A former CIA operative imprisoned at the base for selling weapons to North Korea to help them fight the infection tells Jerry to go to Jerusalem, where he says a safe zone has been maintained by the Israel Mossad since before the outbreak's official acknowledgement. As Jerry and his team return to the aircraft, Karen, worried about her husband after he misses their prearranged call time, rings his satellite phone, attracting zombies. I hate when that happens, who kill several soldiers with only Jerry and his pilot escaping. So let's let's come down here because, whew, okay. So it was about zombies. I was just wondering, perchance, if it was about climate. But no, it was about Jerry and his family are reunited in a safe zone at Freeport, Nova Scotia. A vaccine derived from deadly pathogens is developed and issued to survivors battling the infected. Acting as a kind of camouflage, the vaccine also helps survivors to reach quarantine zones. Human offensives begin against the zombies and hope is restored. The end isn't the end, Jerry comments. Not even close. We lost our entire cities. We still don't know how it started. We bought ourselves some time, but it's given us a chance. Others have found a way to push back. If you can fight, fight. Help each other. Be prepared for anything. Our war has just begun. Interesting. I don't know. I just saw a correlation there between World War Zero and World War Z. I don't know. Are they trying to tell us something? Who the heck knows with these guys? So I just threw that out there because I was thinking about that as it was just going through my little head as I was reading that first paragraph. All right. So the forthcoming organization's website states their chief objective is to mobilize resources to tackle global warming, in a way akin to the Western Allies in World War II. The New York Times reports that John Kerry, who served as okay, we have already read that. We're going to try to reach millions of people, Americans and people in other parts of the world, in order to mobilize an army of people who are going to demand action now on climate change sufficient to meet the challenge, Kerry said in an interview with the Times. Kerry has been an outspoken critic of the Trump administration's environmental policies, calling them profoundly dangerous for the planet, and has repeatedly criticized the president's removal of the U.S. from the 2016 Paris Agreement, and naturally he would. Future generations will measure us by whether we acted on facts, not just debated or denied them. The verdict will hang on whether we put in place policies that will drive the development and deployment of clean technologies, re-energize our economies, and tackle global climate change. The Obama-era official wrote in an opinion editorial for the Times last year, every day that goes by that we're paralyzed by the Luddite in the White House is a day in the future that our grandchildren will suffer. Oh, can you hear that rhetoric? Oh my gosh, that's rhetoric for stupid people right there. Right there. Last November, Kerry told The Guardian that people are going to die with the U.S. no longer a part of the Paris Patch. Yeah, right. My kids and my grandkids are going to face a difficult world because of what Donald Trump has done, he told the British newspaper. Yeah. So now Donald Trump is responsible for global warming. You wouldn't know it's warming if you looked outside here. About 40 minutes from me, there's a 30-car pileup. Sure is. They've shut down the highway. Okay, well, let's go back because, there's more. Always more. Always. All right. Let's look at the next. I just found this odd, ironic, very ironic. Man who slammed President Trump for racist immigration policies killed by illegal immigrant. Yeah, so, this guy was apparently extremely outspoken about, Trump's racist immigration policies, and then he himself was killed by an illegal immigrant. Now, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, ever, but it is ironic. I wonder if he had a second chance at life, if he would still have the same view. Probably not. When Sean Buchanan first started his years of publicly advocating on behalf of asylum seekers, he must not have imagined his life would be put to an end by an illegal alien who avoided deportation by hiding in a local sanctuary church. The father of 5 from Colorado Springs died on August 4th while driving his motorcycle on Highway 83 when Miguel Ramirez Valente swerved into his lane and killed him. The illegal was charged with reckless driving with a revoked license, according to conservative fighters. When mainstream media reported on Buchanan's death in August, they mainly focused on the story behind Ramirez Valente, ignoring the fact that Buchanan, who formerly worked for Christian app company Aware3, was harshly critical of the president for his views on gender, race, and immigration. 2016. Okay, we're not going to go through the whole history of this, but apart from that, in February, he retweeted a post calling the president a racist, according to conservative fighters. Apart from that, Buchanan used his Twitter account to show support for asylum seekers, as well as condemning proposed restrictions on refugees. The killer, Ramirez Valente, was one of 50 illegals who had tried to avoid U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in a church, a CNN report at the time read. A close acquaintance of Ramirez Valente, who asked to have her identity protected for her safety, told ABC7 Denver that Ramirez Valente is an alcoholic and an abuser. He was also arrested for reckless endangerment in 2011 and domestic violence in 2016. A district attorney dismissed both charges. They seem to be given a free pass. And, you know, how many people have died at the hands of illegal aliens now? I would love to know a count. I really would. And I bet you there's no such count that exists, because you know they try to push all this stuff under the rug. All right. Now, I can't remember what this is, but let's go take a look. Oh, yes. Update. The former president of Poland and a prominent member of Burisma's board, Alexander Kwasniewski, said Friday that Hunter Biden was asked to join the company because of his father's political influence. Well, there we have it. You know what? It wouldn't matter if all these facts came and tap danced across the Democrats' noses and knocked on their eyeballs. They would still deny it all. They don't care about facts at all. And they don't care about us. Because if they did, they would be putting all this impeachment nonsense behind them and working for the people in their districts. All right. Well, we're not going to get into that whole story because, you know, I've only got so much time. All right. Oh, okay. We've already taken a look at this. And let's look at this. Yeah, you'll love this, boy. You'll just eat this up. Pope Francis calls on migrants to flood the U.S. Forget national security. Head of Catholic Church says migrants' needs are more important than security concerns. Well, then the Vatican's a big place. Why not invite them all over there? You know, or at least some. Well, I mean, really, he's the Pope. I mean, the Catholic Church is so incredibly rich. You know, and they've probably got Catholic churches that aren't even being used. So, I don't know. Why don't they all flood them? Why doesn't the Pope just open the doors to the Vatican and let them come in? I'm just saying. All right. And there he is kissing the bare foot of a migrant. Because I guess that's what he likes to do. I don't know. Pope Francis has called on migrants to flood the United States and other Western nations while urging world leaders to forget about national security concerns, as immigrants' needs are more important than borders. So I guess, you know, if there's a killer outside of your house and you know that he's a killer, and you know, you let him in because, well, he's cold and he's hungry, so you let him in, but he murders your family. Like, you think that's God's will? No, I think God expects you to take care of your family. Now, if there are people in need, good people in need, that need food or shelter or whatever, I mean, yes, I think it's important to help in any way possible. Some people have more resources than others, but sharing your sandwich with a homeless person, hey, you don't have to have much money to do that. So yes, I'm all for that, but this is an entirely different kettle of fish. So the head of the Catholic Church is calling on political. Did we just read that? Oh, we might have. I don't know. Yes, we did. The Pope has also demanded an end to retention centers for those who cross the border illegally, and for refugees to instead be offered long-term homes to show solidarity and equality. And who's going to pay for these homes, these long-term homes for the refugees, in order for us to show solidarity and equality? What about the homeless veterans that are littering the streets? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. These people have nowhere to go, and that is awful. A veteran should never be on the street unless, they have mental health issues and so forth, that some won't stay in any sort of facility. They get out, they want to be on the street, whatever. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people that it's not their choice. They don't want to be there. They want help. That comes first. What about our seniors? What about the kids in America that go to bed hungry every night? And there are more than you would think. So anyway, that's the Pope's word of advice. Yeah, I'm sure we'll all run to take him up on that. According to Reuters, his challenge to politicians made in a comprehensive position paper on migrants and refugees again appears to put him at odds with the restrictive policies of a number of governments dealing with growing popular anti-immigrant sentiment. And why? Why do you think anti-immigrant sentiment is growing in these countries that have opened their borders? Why? Could it be that their women are not even able to go anywhere themselves anymore because they're being raped and pillaged? They can't go out without a group of people. The women are terrified. Rapes have skyrocketed. Violent death has skyrocketed. Yeah, could that be why they have these restrictive policies? You can't just swing your gates open and let everyone in unvetted, because then the good citizens of that nation will end up slaughtered, as is happening. All right. Solidarity must be concretely expressed at every stage of the migratory experience, from departure through journey to arrival and return, he said in a message ahead of the Roman Catholic Church's World Day of Migrants and Refugees, calling for broader options for migrants and refugees to enter destination countries safely and legally. He said the human rights and dignity of all migrants had to be respected regardless of their legal status. The principle of the centrality of the human person obliges us to always prioritize personal safety over national security, he said. This appears to be a reference to fears voiced in many European countries that refugees' inflows could lead to security problems in their host countries. Not could lead to, it is leading to. They're burning down the churches, old cathedrals that have stood for centuries. They're burning them down. They're raping the women. There's a huge increase in murder, violent crime. Yeah. He said, well, you know what? I don't really care what he said. And somebody said, if he wants to apply it to his state, the Vatican, he can go right ahead. Well, I think he should set the example, don't you? It's easy to say something like Pelosi, Oh yeah, let them all in, let them all in. But I've got a great big wall around my house, and if you hop over it, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to have you arrested. Right. Okay. Well, and this is the man that doesn't even believe that Jesus is the Son of God. He doesn't believe in the deity of Christ. He said so. Do we really want to listen to what this man has to say? I don't. I don't believe that he's a spokesperson for God. I'm sorry. But that is not the voice of God. Nor is it the voice of reason. All right. Excuse me. Now, let's go back and look at this. This will make you angry. Well, it did me. Starbucks worker writes pig on police officer's Thanksgiving Day order. Oklahoma cop attempted to lift colleagues' spirits while working through the holiday. And you can see it right there, pig. Starbucks has been forced to issue an apology after one of its workers labeled an Oklahoma police officer's Thanksgiving Day order with the word pig. The unnamed cop bought a round of beverages from Starbucks on Thursday in an attempt to lift the spirits of his colleagues who were working through the holiday. However, one of the baristas at the branch in Glenpool, just south of Tulsa, took the opportunity to insult the officer who gave up time with his family to serve the community. Kiefer Police Chief Johnny O'Mara shared a photo of the insulting cup handed to one of his officers who purchased the drinks on Thanksgiving Day as a kind gesture for the dispatchers on duty. What irks me is the absolute and total disrespect for a police officer who, instead of being home with family and enjoying a meal and a football game, is patrolling his little town, O'Mara wrote on Facebook. O'Mara's post quickly went viral, with Starbucks adding a comment apologizing for the incident. Yeah, they're only apologizing because they got caught, because they really do feel that way. And a lot of them are, Starbucks is very liberal, and a lot of them are very much against the police. Now, I know there are bad police officers out there, just like any other profession, but there's an awful lot of good ones too. The cup of coffee for a pig is just another little flag, O'Mara continued as he highlighted Starbucks' track record for anti-police staff members. It's another tiny symptom of a nearly indiscernible shout from a contemptuous, roaring, and riotous segment of a misanthropic society that vilifies those who stand for what's right and glorifies the very people who would usher in the destruction of the social fabric. It's another tiny pinprick into the heart of men and women who are asking themselves more often, why am I doing this? Just pour the coffee, please. Are we at a point where a task as simple as pouring Are we at a point where a task as simple as pouring an exceptionally overpriced cup of coffee is so complicated that it cannot be accomplished without expressing oneself? As a side note, I called the store and was told they'd be happy to replace the coffee with a correct label. The proverb, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, came to mind. Thank you, first responders, for risking it all this Thanksgiving away from your families. If you're looking for coffee, use a place where you pour your own and you're certain of what's in it. Stay safe. Go home. Yeah, there is no call. That barista should have been fired, and they should have provided free coffee to the whole precinct. Seriously, if I was a manager and somebody working under me had done something like that, they would be gone. That would be it. And I would do whatever it was to get into the good graces of the police force again. You know why? Because if that place is burning down or somebody's robbing it, who are they going to call? Not the barista. Right. All right. Let's go back now. No. Let's. Okay, let's look at this too. This is New news coming out. This is from the BBC. China due to introduce face scans for mobile users. So now everybody has a mobile phone these days, just about everybody. And so China, in order to get service, you buy a mobile phone, and in order to get service on that phone, you have to have your face scanned. Isn't that lovely? People in China are now required to have their faces scanned when registering new mobile phone services, as the authorities seek to verify the identities of the country's hundreds of millions of internet users. The regulation announced in September was due to come into effect on Sunday. The government says it wants to protect the legitimate rights and interests of citizens in cyberspace. China already uses facial recognition technology to survey its population. It is a world leader in such technologies, but their intensifying use across the country in recent years has sparked debate. When signing up for the new mobile data contracts, people are already required to show their national identification card as required in many countries and have their photos taken. But now they will also have their faces scanned in order to verify that they are a genuine match for the ID provided. China has for years been trying to enforce rules to ensure that everyone using the internet does so under their real name identities. In 2017, for example, new rules required internet platforms to verify a user's true identity before letting them post online content. A new regulation for telecom operators was framed by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology as a way to strengthen this system and ensure that the government can identify all mobile phone users. Most Chinese internet users access the web via their phones. Jeffrey Ding, a researcher on Chinese artificial intelligence at Oxford University, said that one of China's motivations for getting rid of anonymous phone numbers and internet accounts was to boost cybersecurity and reduce internet fraud. But another likely motivation, he said, was to better track the population. It's connected to a very centralized push to keep tabs on everyone, or that's at least the ambition. When the regulations were announced in September, the Chinese media did not make a big deal of it. But online, hundreds of social media users voiced concerns about the increasing amount of data being held on them. People are being more and more strictly monitored, one user of the Sina Weibo microblogging website said. What are the government, afraid of? Many others complained that China had already seen too many data breaches. Before thieves knew what your name was, in the future they'll know what you'll look like, said one user, receiving more than 1,000 likes. Another criticized the policy, saying this is being implemented without the consent of the public. Another said they often received scam calls from people who knew their name and address and asked, will they be able to tell what I look like now? Yeah, they will. But others were less cynical, saying that the move was simply in line with technological process. China already extensively censors and polices the web, removing and blocking content it does not want its citizens to see and talk about. China is often described as a surveillance state. In 2017, it had 170 million CCTV cameras in places across the country, with the goal of installing an estimated 400 million new ones by 2020. The country is also setting up a social credit system, it already has, to keep score of the conduct and public interactions of all its citizens in one database. The aim is that by 2020, which is very quickly approaching, everyone in China will be enrolled in a vast national database that compiles fiscal and government information to give a ranking for each citizen. Facial recognition plays a key role in the surveillance system, and it has been lauded as a way of catching fugitives. Last year, media noted that police were able to pick a fugitive out of a crowd of 60,000 at a concert using the technology. In the western region of, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, where up to 1 million Uyghur Muslims and other ethnic minorities have been detained for what the authorities call re-education. Surveillance cameras use facial recognition to specifically track Uyghurs based on their appearance. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. The New York Times reported earlier this year. But facial recognition is increasingly becoming a part of daily life. And commercial transactions in China, it's used more and more, for example, to pay in shops and supermarkets. However, there has been some blowback. Earlier this year, a university professor sued a wildlife park for making facial recognition mandatory for visitors, sparking a wider debate about the state's mass collection of data on its citizens. In September, the Chinese government said it planned to curb and regulate the use of facial recognition technology in schools after reports a university was trialing using it to monitor the attendance and behavior of students. Mr. Ding said that it's clear that there is increasing backlash against China's widespread adoption of facial recognition technology. Such criticism, used to focus on fears of data theft, hacking, and abuses by commercial companies, he said. However, increasingly, citizens seem willing to criticize how the Chinese government might exploit such data to track the population. And of course, that's what it's all about. All right, and have no fear, it's coming here. Yeah, well, unless Trump turns it around. And to me, I don't know, I'm beginning to think, it's hard to put the genie in the bottle after she's escaped, and it's too late to lock the barn once the horse is out. And so I feel that a lot of these things, when they take our rights from us, they never seem to give them back. They just go further and further. I can't think of any time that our rights have been infringed upon and they said, oops, oh, we better not do that. So sorry, we'll give them back to you. That never happens. It just gets more and more and more and more constrictive. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I really don't. I try to be cautiously optimistic. Okay, now I want to check over here. Yes, yay. Okay, just to make sure that it's recording because I've had some issues lately. So I would have had to spit nails if it wasn't recording and I had to do all this over again. All right, now let's look at this. I think you're going to find this extremely, extremely interesting. Maybe not, but I think you will. Okay. Epstein tapes. Sordid case takes a bizarre turn after mystery hacker emerges. So let's take a look at this from today. Fresh off the press. Shortly after Jeffrey Epstein's August death in a Manhattan detention facility, a shadowy figure claiming to have set up encrypted servers for the convicted sex offender told several attorneys and the New York Times he had a vast archive of incriminating evidence against powerful men stored on overseas servers, including several years' worth of the financier's communications and financial records, which allegedly showed he had vast amounts of Bitcoin and cash in the Middle East and Bangkok and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and diamonds. Going by the pseudonym Patrick Kessler, self-described hacker said he had thousands of hours of footage from hidden cameras from Epstein's multiple properties, which included former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, lawyer Alan Dershowitz, and Prince Andrew, along with 3 billionaires and a prominent CEO, according to the Times. It has long been speculated that Epstein recorded his high-profile guests as part of an international blackmail operation. Armed with nothing more than blurry photos of what he claimed were high-profile individuals in compromising situations, Kessler approached lawyers representing several Epstein accusers, John Pottinger and David Boyce, the former of whom suggested that billionaire Sheldon Adelson, an ally of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, might pay for the alleged footage of Barak. According to excerpts viewed by the Times, Mr. Pottinger and Kessler discussed a plan to disseminate some of the informant's materials, starting with the supposed footage of Mr. Barak. The Israeli election was barely a week away, and Mr. Barak was challenging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The purported images of Mr. Barak might be able to sway the election and fetch a high price. New York Times. After several weeks, the attorneys invited the New York Times to speak with Kessler in mid-September. Then things got even more unbelievable. Following a mid-September meeting with the Times in the Boys Schiller offices, Kessler went rogue, contacting the paper and accusing Boys and Pottinger of an extortion plot against the subjects of said tapes. Barely an hour after the session ended, the Times reporters received an email from Kessler. "Are you free?" He said he wanted to meet alone. "Tell no one else." Kessler complained that Mr. Boyce and Mr. Pottinger were more interested in making money than in exposing wrongdoers. He pulled out his phone, warned the reporters not to touch it, and showed more of what he had. There was a color photo of a bare-chested, gray-haired man with a slight smile. Kessler said it was a billionaire. He also showed blurry black-and-white images of a dark-haired man receiving oral sex. He said it was a prominent CEO. At one point, he showed what he said were classified CIA documents, writes the Times. Weeks after the meeting, the lawyers struck a deal with the Times. During the last Friday in September, they would send a team overseas to download Kessler's evidence from his servers, and had alerted the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan of their intention to do so, and would then share all the evidence with the paper on the condition that they would have discretion over which men could be written about and when. Separately, Kessler had arranged to give the Times his evidence using a convoluted series of steps. On the day the data was to be transmitted, Kessler canceled at the 11th hour, claiming a fire was burning and he had to flee the Ukraine. In early October, Kessler said he was ready to produce the Epstein files. He told the Times that he had created duplicate versions of Mr. Epstein's servers. He laid out detailed logistical plans for them to be shipped by boat to the United States, and for one of his associates, a very short Icelandic man named Stephen, to deliver them to the Times headquarters at 11 a.m. on October 3rd. Kessler warned that he was erecting a maze of security systems. First, a Times employee would need to use a special thumb drive to access a proprietary communication system. Then Kessler's colleague would transmit a code to decrypt the files. If his instructions weren't followed precisely, Kessler said the information would self-destruct. Specialists at the Times set up a number of air-gapped laptops disconnected from the internet in a windowless, padlocked meeting room. Reporters cleared their schedules to sift through thousands of hours of surveillance footage. On the morning of the scheduled delivery, Kessler sent a series of frantic texts. A disaster had struck. A fire was burning. The duplicate servers were destroyed. One of his team members was missing. He was fleeing to Kiev. Except 2 hours later, Kessler contacted Pottinger and didn't mention any emergency. Instead, he asked Pottinger to formulate 2 schemes for prying up to $1 billion from potential targets with the footage, which the Times suggested may have been a trap. Pottinger obliged, describing 2 options for capitalizing on the evidence. The first, a standard model for legal settlements, would include splitting the money among Epstein's victims, a charitable foundation, Kessler and the lawyers, who would get up to 40%. In the second hypothetical, the lawyers would approach the high-profile men, convince them to hire them to ensure they wouldn't get sued, and then make a contribution to a nonprofit as part of their retainer. Pottinger would effectively represent a victim, settle their case, and then represent the victim's alleged abuser. A legal, yet morally questionable practice for an attorney to engage in. Dershowitz and the weird recorded phone call. In late September, Dershowitz's secretary related a message that Kessler wanted to speak with him about Boyce. and whom Dershowitz had long-running feud, with whom Dershowitz had a long-running feud. Dershowitz recorded the call, during which Kessler said he no longer trusted Boys and Pottinger. The problem is that they don't want to move forward with any of these people legally, said Kessler, adding, they're just interested in trying to settle and take a cut. Who are these people that you have on videotape? Mr. Dershowitz asked. There's a lot of people, Kessler said, naming a few powerful men. He added, there's a long list of people that they want me to have that I don't have. Who? Mr. Dershowitz asked. Did they ask about me? Of course they asked about you. You know that, sir. And you don't have anything on me, right? I do not. No, Kessler said. Because I never had sex with anybody, Mr. Dershowitz said. Later in the call, he added, I am completely clean. I was at Jeffrey's house. I stayed there, but I didn't have any sex with anybody. At the Times, asked what the purpose of Kessler's phone call, why did he tell Mr. Dershowitz that he wasn't on the supposed surveillance tapes, contradicting what he had said and showed to Mr. Boyce, Mr. Pottinger, and the Times? Did the call sound a little rehearsed? Dershowitz told the Times he had no idea why Kessler called him. In a November 7th email, Boyce told the Times, I still believe he is what he purported to be, adding, I have to evaluate people for my day job, and he seems too genuine to be fake, and I very much want him to be real. Well, imagine if there are actual tapes and somebody has these tapes of these powerful men and probably women as well engaging in illegal activity. That said, he also noted, I am not unconscious of the danger of wanting to believe something too much. 10 days later, Mr. Boyce arrived at the Times for an on-camera interview. It was bright, chilly Sunday, and Mr. Boyce had just flown in from Ecuador, where he said he was doing work for the finance ministry. Reporters wanted to ask him plainly if his and Mr. Pottinger's conduct with Kessler crossed ethical lines. Would they have brokered secret settlements that buried evidence of wrongdoing? Did the notion of extracting huge sums from men in exchange for keeping sex tapes hidden meet the definition of extortion? Yes. Mr. Boyce said the answer to both questions was no. He said he and Mr. Pottinger operated well within the law. They only intended to pursue legal action on behalf of their clients. In other words, that they were a long way from extortion. In any case, he said he and Mr. Pottinger had never authenticated any of the imagery or identified any of the supposed victims, much less contacted any of the men on the hot list. When the Times showed Boyce's text exchange between Kessler and Pottinger, he showed a flash of anger and said it was the first time seeing them. Eventually, Boyce concluded that Kessler was probably a con man. I think that he was a fraudster who was just trying to set things up, adding that he had probably baited Pottinger into writing things that were more nefarious than they really were. Pottinger, meanwhile, claims he was stringing Kessler along, misleading him deliberately in order to get the servers. Despite Kessler's story falling apart, the Times asks if his claims are plausible. Did America's best-connected sexual predator accumulate incriminating videos of powerful men? Well, we know he did. Two women who spent time in Mr. Epstein's home said the answer was yes. In an unpublished memoir, Virginia Jeffrey, who accused Mr. Epstein of making her a sex slave, wrote that she discovered a room in his New York mansion where monitors displayed real-time surveillance footage. And Maria Farmer, an artist who accused Mr. Epstein of sexually assaulting her when she worked for him in the 1990s, said that Mr. Epstein once walked her through the mansion, pointing out pin-sized cameras that he said were in every room. I said, "Are you recording all this?" Ms. Farmer said in an interview. He said, "Yes, we keep it. We keep everything." During a 2005 search of Mr. Epstein's Palm Beach, Florida estate, the police found two cameras hidden in clocks, one in the garage and the other next to his desk, according to police reports, but no other cameras were found. So it appears that Kessler was either a fraud or an operative, and the entire saga may have been designed to cast doubt over whether tapes actually exist. Or Kessler is for real and for some reason hasn't found a way to release the videos. That said, since he says he's not interested in extortion, what's the holdup? Now, this is a Very, very interesting article. Very interesting. But again, we don't know. Is he for real or is he trying to extort? Does he have these tapes or is he a con man? Or is he a CIA operative? Nobody knows. So this is quite interesting, and I will be very, very interested in how this develops, to tell you the truth. So let's go back. I know our time is running out here, but I want to see if well, there's a lot more here. Yes, I do want to get to this. This is very, very important, okay? Let's look at this. This is Adam Schiff having lunch with Fiona Hill, a witness. So if Adam Schiff had lunch with Fiona Hill, that would be considered witness tampering, correct? Yes, that would be witness tampering. Now, I wonder what's going to be done with this. Probably nothing, because they have not been above board with this whole impeachment sham from the beginning. The whole thing is a sham. They're not going according to what should be done. They're just doing whatever they feel, you know. Now, I do want to get also to this, because this actually surprised me. Well, it shouldn't really, but it does. And why Melania? Facebook deletes Melania Trump photos, claims they're hate speech. Hate speech. Big tech ramping up censorship efforts ahead of 2020 elections. That's exactly what they're doing. In its latest attack on free speech, Facebook deleted photos of Melania Trump on Black Friday, calling them hate speech. A woman who goes by Amy in DC posted a warning she received from Facebook for posting a photo of the First Lady. Facebook just removed this from a political page I'm co-editor on, she wrote. Hard to see the meme another editor shared, but it's a picture of our First Lady and says, you can keep your Lady Gaga, we've got Lady MAGA. Or MAGA. Contents removed for violating our standard on hate speech. Facebook just removed this from a political page. Okay, we just read that. Hate speech? Really? She added. This ridiculous censorship by Facebook further highlights their escalating war against free speech because the photos clearly suggest nothing hateful. The social media platform is simply trying to eradicate conservative content, however innocuous, from its platform to demoralize conservatives and influence the 2020 election outcome in Democrats' favor. Of course that's what they're doing. I mean, we all see through that. So, yeah. This is from I've never been on this site before. It's called News Wars, Battling Tyranny Worldwide. But I want to investigate it much further. I don't know who owns this site or anything much at all, but it seems like a good site. Maybe it's part of InfoWars. I don't know. If any of you know, please let me know. So there you go. And let's see here. I know, time's a ticking here. Time's a ticking. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh yes, okay. This is the last thing I'm going to be getting to in this video. Okay, this is very bizarre. Very. Okay, the London Bridge hero that tackled the terrorist has been revealed as a convicted murderer on day release. Things that make you go, huh? Yeah. Nice looking man. Yeah, I think that's the one that took the tusk off the wall. A convicted murderer out on day release was part of a group of brave men who took on the London Bridge terrorist, according to reports. I don't believe anything that comes out from James Ford, 42, is said to have tried to save a woman's life after she was knifed by Usman Khan during a rampage that left 2 people dead, and maybe he did. And I mean, that's awesome. If that's true, it's awesome. Okay. Now that doesn't look like the other picture of him at all, but James Ford, 42, intervened in the London Bridge terror attack, and the London Bridge attacker has been named as convicted terrorist Usman Khan. We know that. And okay, so Usman Khan was known to authorities after being convicted of terrorism offenses. That's him, apparently. And here's a guy with a giant narwhal tusk, which are, by the way, those tusks are worth a fortune. I mean a fortune, like tens of thousands of dollars. And that's a very conservative estimate, very conservative, from what I've heard. Now, I could have been informed wrong, but that's what I've heard. They are rare. And let me see. So he was caged for life in April 2004 after murdering a 21-year-old with learning difficulties, the Daily Mail reports. Ford was given a minimum 15-year sentence after killing Amanda Champion, 21, who had the mental age of a 15-year-old. She was strangled and had her throat cut in Ashford, Kent, the year before. The murder was only uncovered when a Samaritans worker broke the charity's confidentiality policy. Ford, a factory worker and amateur wrestler, is said to have called the Samaritans and confessed, "I've killed a girl," ringing the charity's helpline 45 times over the next month. The Samaritans worker told the cops after leaving the job. Dramatic high-definition video shows brave bystanders tackling a man in a fake suicide vest moments after 2 innocent people died in Friday's stabbing rampage. The terrified clip then shows armed cops surrounding the suspect and shooting him dead as terror struck in the heart of the Capitol. Yeah, that's a little bit melodramatic, but... Khan, 28, had been a guest at Fishmonger's Hall prison rehabilitation event when he launched his knife rampage. Police said Khan, who lived in the Staffordshire area, was known to authorities after he was convicted in 2012 for terrorism offenses. He was released from prison in December 2018 on license, whatever that means. That's got to be something that is unique to the UK. So I know I have UK listeners, and if you could tell me what that means to be released from prison on a license, please let me know, because I'm very curious. 3 people remained in hospital after 12 were injured. Amanda's family are said to have tried to stop Ford being released on parole and only found out he was free when police called them on Friday. The Daily Mail reports that Whitehall sources confirm Ford had been on the London Bridge yesterday. Amanda's aunt, Angela Cox, 65, told the paper, "He is not a hero. He is a murderer out on day release, which us as a family didn't know anything about. He murdered a disabled girl. He is not a hero. Absolutely not. The police liaison officer called me saying he was on TV. I am so angry they let him out without even telling us." He is, okay, I'm sorry. Got a little trigger happy. Any of my family could have been in London and just bumped into him. It was a hell of a shock. It was a horrible thing, she said. "Have you heard about the incident in London today?" And I hadn't. She said, "Put it on now and you will see James Ford on the telly." She said, "Don't worry, it is not him that's done anything. He's there and he's been classed as a hero. For him to be called a hero, he is not. He is a cold-blooded murderer for no reason whatsoever. He just went out and murdered a disabled person. I don't care what he's done today. He's a murderer. He is scum. Amanda was my niece and she was vulnerable and he took her life. He knew what he was doing. People don't change." Well, actually, people do change. I disagree with that. The judge who sentenced Ford said at the time, "What you did was an act of wickedness." And no doubt, you clearly have an interest in the macabre. and also an obsession with death, including murder by throat cutting. Amanda happened to be walking through the area of Woodland at the wrong time. You grabbed hold of her, strangled her, and cut her throat, causing her to suffer a terrible and lonely death. Sad. Aww. So, yeah, that is all there is to that, really. And so many unanswered questions here. I don't believe the narrative, the official narrative. I don't believe it at all. And you may disagree with me, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree. I still can respect you if you disagree with me. Yeah, I don't believe it. I'm not buying it. So let's go back here. Now, I do want to thank a few people before I sign off. Coffee donors. Tom, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that very much. Very, very much. And Patreon, Marianne Golub. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I'm not sure. She increased her pledge. Thank you so much. And Susan Friedland increased her pledge. Thank you very much. And we've got 2 new Patreon supporters, Karen Marquis. If that may not be how you pronounce the last name. It could be Marquis. But anyway, Karen, thank you. And Ho Ho Ha too. I love that name. Ho Ho Ha too. Yeah, she is a new Patreon supporter, she or he, and thank you very much. I really do depend on donations and the kindness of you guys that are listeners to be able to keep doing this. And yeah, it's probably going to get even a little more dicier with everything that's happening with YouTube. But I hope you will follow me over. If I get kicked off of YouTube, I will be on BitChute, okay? I will be on there. I'm already on there. I just haven't uploaded anything yet. So I think what I'm going to start doing is uploading to both YouTube and BitChute so that, it will be there because once they take your channel, like all your videos are gone. But I do have a listener, Heather H. from Houston. Triple H. She has been keeping every single one of my videos for that purpose, which I appreciate. Thank you very much. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, I know it's not good to keep your sneeze in, but you didn't want me sneezing into the microphone, did you? All right. If you did, then there's something wrong with you. Anyway, yes, Triple H, Heather H. from Houston. She has kept all the videos, so that is good because I can recreate my channel in its entirety on BitChute. So have no fear, I'm not going anywhere. YouTube might kick me off, but I'll still be around on wherever. So yeah, and I do have another channel on YouTube, but chances are I'm thinking that if they take away one channel, they might take away both. So anyway, we'll see how it goes, but I will be communicating with you guys and letting you know what is happening. I'm not going anywhere. I want you to know that. If I get kicked off YouTube, I'm going to be on BitChute. I'm not giving up. That's what they want. They want people to give up and shut up because the 2020 elections are coming. So YouTube is going to kick off anybody that they think is pro-Trump and telling the truth. So anyway, I'm not going to give up though. I'm not. So there you go. Alrighty. I think that's it for tonight. So you guys stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and look. I didn't get the microphone out of the picture, but you guys are, all adults. You can handle a little corner of a microphone, right? Sure you can. All right, that's it for now, and I'd like to have a coffee, but they're probably serving coffee on sticks because it's that cold out. So anyway, that's it. You guys have a great night. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and please come back and see me. No, really. And keep seeking truth because Deception bites you in your hinder parts.